Well, it doesn't look like anybody else is coming, so.
We're the hardy ones here.
That's right.
We're true Montana.
Well, thank you for braving the cold and the snow. And last week, we read and discussed how Job and his three friends went back and forth and then ended up in a stalemate. By this time, they were probably pretty upset with each other. And we begin this week with a three-part summation by Job. And we start with chapter 29, Job's first part of his three-part summation. Job reviews his former happiness, wealth, and honor. If we could start reading Job 29, verses 2 through 7. I have 2 through 6, but I included 7 on the last in the next little paragraph. So if we could just read all the way through 7, that'd be great.
I'll start.
Okay.
How I long for the months gone by, for the days when God watched over me, when his lamp shone upon my head, and by his light I walked through darkness. Oh, for the days when I was in my prime, when God's intimate friendship blessed my house, when the Almighty was still with me and my children were around me, and when my path was drenched with cream, and the rock poured out from me streams of olive oil, when I went to the gate of the city and took my seat in the public square.
Okay, yeah.
So was he an important person?
Must have been, don't you think?
At the time, he was really rich and according to those times, and very influential and I guess one of the elders, though the wise men of the city where he was at. And then on 29:7, it's talking about the gate of the city, and that is where the most important business was conducted and important legal cases were tried. So it was not quite like the town square, but almost like the center court of the mall. You can see everything and everything happening around there. So
And he had a seat,
right.
so
My
he was
seat.
recognized.
Yeah.
Well, and it also says in the next verse that the old men rose to their feet and the chief, refrained from speaking. Yeah, I mean, they were respectful as a Dickens.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then verse 6, the second part says, and the rock poured out for me streams of oil. It didn't say olive oil.
No.
I was thinking of other oil.
I
What?
was too. I'm glad your Bible said olive oil.
I heard she read olive oil, so that I wrote olive in there.
Mine's an almond
Good. And then also in 29, Job addresses one of Eliphaz's accusations. And if we could read Job 29, verses 11 through 14.
When the ear heard, it commended me, and when the eye saw it, approved. Because I delivered the poor who cried, and the orphan who had no helper. The blessing of the wretched came upon me, and I caused the widow's heart to sing for joy. I put on righteousness, and it clothed me. My justice was like a robe and a turban.
So he did
And if you remember, one of Eliphaz's accusations, was that he wasn't taking care of the poor or the widowed. He was, just looking out for himself, and therefore that's why you're, being punished the way you are.
Yeah.
And then in chapter 30 is Job's second part of his three-part summation. Job laments over the loss of everything that he has, including his honor. If we wanna read chapter 30, verses 8 through 10.
I'll do that.
Okay.
A senseless, disreputable brood, they have been whipped out of the land, and now they mock me in song. I am a byword to them. They abhor me, they keep aloof from me, they do not hesitate to spit at the sight of me.
You know,
So who's he talking about there?
right, and that is, you know, there, you know, where he used to sit, you know, in his seat at the council, you know, and be highly respected, and now they're, you know, spitting at him and just get away from me and just revolting. I mean, that has got to be such a dramatic change, you know, from,
It's the young people who are doing it.
right. You know, and then in those, and like I said, in those days, I mean, the young people were very respectful of their elders, and you kinda get that now a little bit, but not half as much as it used to be back then.
Although even within my generation, I just remember a lot more respect for elders in my, you know, my childhood than now.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
oh, yes.
It's interesting how that's a cultural thing, you know, I think, I mean, I don't know for sure, but it seems like Asian cultures really respect the elders.
Oh,
and-
absolutely, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I find a lot of people, young people, are very helpful to old ladies, I've discovered.
Yeah, I have too. I think especially when it's one-on-one, I think people are better than we give them credit for.
Right.
The youth
That's true.
especially,
That's
yeah.
true. Sometimes you get almost more help than you want. When I'm with my granddaughters, I get more help than I want. I mean, good grief, you know.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lot
that's
of young
good.
people, I think, that are just, they see you have a little problem or something, they're right there
Oh, yeah.
to pick up something or help you or.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
That's
oh, yeah, you know, and I think that's a lot of it is the way that we're raised, you know, cause I mean, I raised my boys, you know, to, you know, be helpful, be respectful, you know, do what you can to, you know, to help people, and I don't think it's quite fair that everybody gets bunched into one group, you know, like, this generation is, you know, not good, or, I shouldn't say not good, but, you know,
Well, that's what we hear
disrespectful
about.
towards their
Yeah.
elders, you know, and, I mean, I even remember when I was growing up, I mean, some kids, you know, would just, if I did half the things that they did to their parents, I wouldn't be here. My dad would've took care of that in a heartbeat.
The bad thing is when the news is always when somebody.
Right,
does something
yeah, when they like attack an older person.
Instead of something good. ABC Evening News, the last maybe 5 minutes or 3 minutes, I think he calls it America Strong or some name like that. And it's always something good
Oh.
that has happened, and it's
I
all
love that.
usually children.
Aw.
The one that sticks in my mind so clearly is this little boy, and I don't know, it was a town like a city like Los Angeles, Chicago, where there's homeless sitting all along on the sidewalk. And here's this little boy, he was probably 5 years old, handing out peanut butter sandwiches to him, and he handed to him, don't forget to show love. And you go to the next one, don't forget to show love. And so it's always stories like that,
Yeah.
that whoever the reporter, you know, is, and it's ABC's news,
That's
5:30.
And what time do you watch ABC News?
It's either 5 or 5:30, I get mixed up, they're always,
Yeah, I watch CBS and PBS.
yeah.
I
But
get
ABC.
I get ABC too, but
But anyway, I just love that, and it's almost always about children doing something nice for
It's
somebody.
helpful to tune that in.
During the pandemic, I don't know, John Krasinski, who was on The Office, he's an actor, he did it because they were at home with his kids, and his kids actually helped him, like the sign for his beginning of the show that his daughter wrote or drew. It was called Some Good News, SGN, so it's kind of like like a TV acronym or something, and it was like, it was on just a YouTube thing, and he did several of them, and it was just
That's
filled
really
with
great.
all stories of that, and
Hmm.
I was wishing he would continue it after the
Oh,
pandemic,
yeah.
because they were so
We
heartwarming,
needed
and, yeah, and we needed it, especially back
Oh,
then, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes, I mean, I have days when, if I've been thinking about Gail too much for a day, or something like that where I'm sad, I just can hardly deal with the national
Yeah,
news. I just think, I think I'll wait until the Ed McIntosh comes on with the weather, and then I'll
Yeah.
decide
Yeah.
what we're doing locally here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's
Yeah,
just,
it's
you
too
know,
much.
sometimes it's just a downer.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
All right, and then continuing on with, chapter 30, Job accuses God of abusing his power and being treated unfairly. And I'll read verses 20 through 24. And I cry out to you, God, but you do not answer. I stand up, but you merely look at me. You turn me ruthlessly with the might of your hand. You attack me. You snatch me up and drive me before the wind. You toss me about in the storm. I know you will bring me down to death, to the place appointed for all the living. Surely no one lays a hand on a broken man when he cries for help in his distress. You know, and then, is this type of accusation the same as the accusation Job has been avoiding?
Yeah,
Questioning.
because he hasn't done that yet, has he? This is the first time.
No.
He's been
Where are we? I'm lost.
avoided.
My Bible says he
Yeah.
directs his thoughts away from men
Thank you.
towards God. So
Mhm.
the direction of his,
His anger, yeah, he was
He was
mad at his
directed
friends
now.
first.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's God.
Right.
Is that right?
Mhm. Oh, yeah. You know, and then, in chapter 31, Job's third part of his, three-part summation, and this is the most climatic section. Then, Job denies all the sins listed, but he tests his loyalty to God as his sovereign Lord. And, I just kind of wrote down, you know, we don't have to read them all, I guess, but, the Job's 7 sins that he disavows is, lust, cheating in business, infidelity, pride, greed, adultery, and gloating. And then I wrote, you know, right next to it, I wrote the verses that correspond with those 7 sins that he disavows.
And they're all in chapter 31, huh?
Yes.
Mm.
Good grief.
You know, and I was, you know, and I was talking with Pastor Ben, you know, and, him and I were kind of thinking on the same path, you know, cause that Job had, you know, 7 sins that he disavowed, or denies. And, I was like, well, what about, like, you know, wasn't there something about, you know, 7 deadly sins? And so I Googled that, you know, and it and the 7 deadly sins are pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. You know, and so I was kind of comparing those with the 7 sins that Job denied, and I think they line up fairly close, or if not, You know, cause pride and pride are in there, greed and greed are in there,
Lust.
you know, lust. You know, but, you know,
What is sloth? I only know it as an animal. So what is sloth in this?
and the way I'm getting it was, being complacent, I guess.
Oh,
We're lazy.
Lazy, yeah.
Lazy.
oh, yeah.
You know how slow a sloth is? Yeah, it's slow to do anything.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, cause yeah, if you Google the 7 deadly sins, you know, and it comes up with, you know, it listed them, you know, in sloth, and I was like, sloth? But, yeah, you know, complacent, you know, lazy, just,
sure, I can see
A do nothing
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
A do nothing person.
right, exactly,
And then you look at gluttony and you think, you know, does that mean I shouldn't drink quite so much coffee?
You know, and the thing here again, you know, Job still does not accuse God of wrongdoing or anything.
So he's just saying
He's-
he's not guilty himself of any of these, but he's not bad mouthing God yet.
Right, exactly,
Yeah,
And
they're
then-
human traits.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess the question, you know, one of the things that Pastor Ben came up with, you know, he said there, well, how do Job's sins that he disavows compare to the deadly sins? You know, and like I said, lust was in there, pride was in there, greed was in there. You know, I guess,
I think they're all related, yeah.
right. You know, and gluttony, I think that's kinda linked with pride, I would think, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, if a person's glutton, I mean, they have, you know.
They just want more.
Yeah,
They just want more.
that they have enough, but they want more, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think
So
that.
that's almost greed too, isn't it?
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
right next to greed.
And I think infidelity would be, you know, envy or, or lust too, yeah.
mm-hmm. Heck, yeah. Alright. And then, we don't need to go onto the back of that page, but, cause it ended up with week 2.
Oh, okay.
But we continue on to chapter 32. And here we are introduced to a 4th counselor named Elihu. He is younger than the other 3 counselors. Elihu means he is my God. Elihu declares himself ready to show that Job and the 3 other counselors are in the wrong. And he comes from Buz, which is a desert region in the east. And I wish I had a map, you know, to kind of show it, but next time I will. I found a great resource that has on Amazon.com that has maps of all the old time.
Mm,
Really, that's wonderful.
So
thanks.
I'm gonna order that, and so next time I'll be a little more prepared to show you where,
Buzz.
you know, where Buzz is.
Never heard of it.
This counselor Elihu that we're going to be introduced to, and there's the 3 others. I have forgotten at the beginning of Job, where do they come from, or how does the story start that we've got these other
Right.
people, can't think of their names now, we just talked about it.
Eliphaz, the
Yeah.
Temanite,
Yeah,
and
how do they,
they were,
without me going back and reading the first part of Job all over again, how do they come into the picture?
yeah, well, they were, three friends of Job,
Okay,
you know, and when they heard that he was suffering, you know, they come down to help him
oh, okay,
through his times of trial, I guess.
okay, that helps a lot.
And,
It's like those miraculous things, don't you suppose?
right,
Mm.
you know,
Through oral
but
tradition.
instead of sitting there, you know, being there for him, you know, well, what did you do wrong? You had to have done something wrong in order to be afflicted with all these issues, you know, by God. You know, and yet Job is, you know, maintaining his innocence and, well, I didn't do anything. You know, how dare you accuse me of, you know, and after going back and forth, you know, 3 or 4 times with each of them, and then, like I said, in chapter 32, Elihu is introduced. And if we wanna read, 32, verses 6 through 9.
Where?
So it looks like a hard one to read.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I can try it. Elihu, son of Barashel the Buzite, answered, I am young in years, and you are aged. Therefore I was timid and afraid to declare my opinion to you. I said, let days speak, and many years teach wisdom. But truly it is the Spirit in a mortal, the breath of the Almighty, that makes for understanding. It is not the old that are wise, nor the aged that understand what is right.
Okay, and then, we jump to chapter 33, and, Elihu's first of 4 speeches. Elihu addresses Job, and unlike the other 3, Elihu addresses Job by name. Elihu's method is to quote Job and then show him where Job is wrong. And I can read 33 verses 8 through 18. But you have said in my hearing, I heard the very words, I am pure, I have done no wrong, I am clean and free from sin. Yet God has found fault with me. He considers me his enemy. He hastens my feet in shackles. He keeps close watch on all my paths. But I tell you, in this you are not right, for God is greater than any mortal. Why do you complain to him that he responds to no one's words? For God does speak, now one way, now another, though no one perceives it. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls on people as they slumber in their beds, he may speak in their ears and terrify them with warnings, to turn them from wrongdoing and keep them from pride, to preserve them from the pit, their lives from perishing by the sword. And then Elihu continues to speak. This is the second of his 4 speeches, and this chapter is divided into 3 parts. Elihu addresses the 3 counselors first, then he addresses Job, and then the last part is he addresses himself last. And if we could have somebody read chapter 34, verses 2 through 4, and this is Elihu addressing all 3 of the counselors.
Hear my words, you wise men. Listen to me, you men of learning. For the ear tests words as the tongue tastes food. Let us discern for ourselves what is right. Let us learn together what is good.
Okay, and then, Job Elihu is continuing on, and he addresses Job in verses 16 through 20.
If you have understanding, hear this. Listen to what I say. Shall one who hates justice govern? Will you condemn one who is righteous and mighty, who says to a king, you scoundrel, and to princes, you wicked men? No, or who shows no partiality to nobles, nor regards the rich more than the poor, for they are all the work of his hands. In a moment they die. At midnight the people are shaken and pass away, and the mighty are taken away by no human hand.
So he's saying this to Job? He's saying this part to Job? Who hates justice?
Oh,
And then, the last part, Elihu is addressing himself. And in verses 34 through 37. And men of understanding declare, wise men who hear me say to me, Job speaks without knowledge. His words lack insight. Oh, that Job might be tested to the utmost for answering like a wicked man. To his sin he adds rebellion. Scornfully he claps his hands among us and multiplies his words against God.
I wonder if the persons that are imprisoned unjustly, you know, if they have a chance to read any scriptures, if they read about Job. There's a woman that's on the news all the time. She's in a Russian prison.
Right.
Now they just
Yeah.
told her she has 9 more years. 9 more years, and her conviction is because of, I think, bringing drugs in, isn't it? I mean, it's not a big deal, but giving her 9 more years.
9 years is, yeah.
And she's a young woman.
And they sent her to like isn't it a penal colony, did they say? It's like, it's gonna be not good.
That's like all good.
why would you go over there in the first
I
place, you
know,
know?
well, she was playing a game, but she
Yeah.
should not have had that stuff.
Well, that's
Still.
right, she should know they're not, like the United States.
Of course, she should have known better, but, you know, that's sort of.
She will
Young and-
appreciate
yeah.
the United States when she gets it,
She
she would
will.
not stand for the flag or anything.
Oh, really?
She would, no, she did not
She'd done a few-
support the United States,
She what?
did not support the United States.
No, she,
Mm. Oh dear.
oh dear.
No, and then
She don't know what freedom's all about now.
She will, yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, isn't that unfortunate, but so we
in chapter 35, Elihu's third speech addressed to Job, Elihu was thinking that it is unjust and inconsistent for Job to expect vindication from God, and at the same time implied that God does not care whether we are righteous. If someone wants to read chapter 35, verses 2 through 13.
Is it my turn? Did you?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Isn't there?
35, okay, 2:13. Elihu continued and said, do you think this to be just? You said, I am in the right before God. If you ask, what advantage have I? How am I better off than if I had sinned? I will answer you and your friends with you. Look at the heavens and see, observe the clouds, which are higher than you. If you have sinned, what do you accomplish against him? And if your transgressions are multiplied, What do you do to him? Him meaning God, I assume, right? If you are righteous, what do you give to him? Or what does he receive from your hand? Your wickedness affects others like you, and your righteousness other human beings. Because of the multitude of oppressions, people cry out. They call for help because of the army of the mighty. But no one says, where is God, my maker, who gives strength in the night, who teaches us more than the animals of the earth, and makes us wiser than the birds of the air? There they cry out, but he does not answer, because of the pride of evildoers. Surely God does not hear an empty cry, nor does the Almighty regard it. What does that mean? Guard. Doesn't hear or pay attention to it?
That's what mine says, pays attention.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then in chapter 36, Elihu's final speech addressed to Job for the most part. Its theme is the majesty, power, and mercy of God. And I'll go ahead and I'll read 36 verses 2 through 7. Bear with me a little longer, and I will show you that there is more to be said in God's behalf. I get my knowledge from afar. I will ascribe justice to my Maker. Be assured that my words are not false. One who has perfect knowledge is with you. God is mighty, but despises no one. He is mighty and firm in his purpose. He does not keep the wicked alive, but gives the afflicted their rights. He does not take his eyes off the righteous. He enthrones them with kings and exalts them forever.
Is part of what he's saying, if all you're doing is complaining to God instead of praising him?
Right.
I don't know
Yeah,
why he's ineffective.
Why Job's ineffective?
Yeah, like I said, so far he's just been complaining and nothing has taken place as of yet. But that's to come. That'll be next week.
Okay.
And then, in chapter 37, a continuation of Elihu's final speech, Elihu continues to show the majesty, power, and mercy of God. If we could read chapter 37, verses 2 through 5.
Listen to the thunder of his voice and the rumbling that comes from his mouth. Under the whole heaven he lets it loose, and his lightning to the corners of the earth. After it his voice roars, he thunders with his majestic voice, and he does not restrain the lightnings when his voice is heard. God thunders wondrously with his voice. He does great things that we cannot comprehend.
And then it's kind of a multitude of questions, but is Elihu right? Or, and is Job missing something? I guess so far that we've kind of read.
He's just trying to justify himself, He's trying to say, as far as I know, I've been doing this thus and such. Don't you think?
Yes. I would agree with that very much so, because he's, can, even though he has all these afflictions, he's just complaining out loud, and saying, why me, what's going on, you know, what have I done, you know, type thing, I have done nothing to deserve this.
But you hear that nowadays though too, you know, if somebody is with a disease or something, why me? You know, you hear them say that, why me?
Yeah,
Right.
be like your first gut reaction.
Yeah, yeah, what did I do?
And then, and like I said before, I mean, I can only go on, you know, on my experiences, you know, but, you know, cause I know others, you know, have experienced, you know, closeness and close death, you know, like when Stacy passed away, you know, I mean, at first, you know, I was like, well, why her, you know, why me, why us? You know, and I didn't even was reading in Job, but, you know, I was reading in the devotional that Stacy always read, you know, and it said, give everything to God, let him, you know, and that was just such a huge weight off of my shoulders, you know, and then like now, you know, I'm going through issues with my oldest son. You know, I haven't talked to him in almost 2 months now, and for some reason or another, I still haven't figured that one out. But on the plus note, my youngest son is starting to talk to me and with me, and so that relationship is continuing to grow up, you know, and so it's, you know, one way or the other, you know, and it's just, you know, but it's, you know, it's one of those, why me? What did I do? What's going on?
Asking that question will never get an answer.
Exactly.
Yes.
Just turn it over to God, because we don't understand.
Exactly. Exactly. And we're gonna be probably ending just a little bit early today, because like I said, we don't have a whole lot. But on the very back page, and it was part of Dr. Reverend Alfie Wines' commentary on Job from enterthebible.org, and stuff that she had written on this. Oh, excuse me. And honesty before God. I've learned so much from reading and studying the book of Job. In many ways, the book changed my life. I love the book of Job because it saved my faith in God. Job's honesty taught me that I can be a person of faith with questions and critiques, and that I can be honest with God about my questions and my feelings. When I felt in my spirit that honesty with God is okay, it was good to have biblical affirmation. Like many growing up, I heard that we aren't supposed to question God, yet asking questions is part of life, is part of getting an understanding, which, by the way, is highly recommended in the book of Proverbs. That was a big relief.
Well, in the study of Job, Chad, you've done a good job of reducing it down to the main themes of each person. There's lots of verses we didn't read and it didn't appear to be necessary. You picked out the verses that kept the story going.
Right, yeah,
You
and
did a really good job on that.
oh, thank you, and that, and there, you know, like I said, cause Pastor Ben, he gave me a commentary on Job, and I read the commentary, and, you know, and it was discussing, you know, all sorts of different things, how, did Job commit blasphemy? I mean, did he do this? Did he do that? And I was like, I gotta reread this. And so I reread it, and I was like, holy smokes, you know, Pastor Ben, how can I fit all this information in 4 weeks?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is, you know, this would be a 6-week, you know, a minimum 6 weeks. And you just pick one theme and go with it. And so far, my theme, I guess, throughout all of this is, you know, that Job has not cursed or blamed God for any wrongdoings. I mean, yes, he's been tested and has all these afflictions, you know, but yet he didn't, you know, I curse you, God, I don't want to be a part of your life, you know, he, and, towards the end here, you know, when he's, he really, starts, I guess, praising God for all of his afflictions, if you can imagine that. I mean, I still don't.
But I'm just coming away with, it's okay to question God.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think that in this time in society, there's a real tendency to blame or find fault rather than question. You know?
Well, right.
And you know, it's really, it's just there. And
Oh, yeah.
recently I had a visit from my nephew, one of my nephews, and he's a real estate man now. He used to be a high school teacher. And he's the same age as my daughter was. They were born the same year. And and I enjoy him very much. You know, he's kind of a big loudmouth, and you know, he does talk a lot. And you know, you have to do more listening than talking. However, it was interesting because he questions everything. Everything. He's an Episcopalian, he was raised Lutheran. He's Episcopalian now. And you know, and so right there, you've got a small division, not a big one. Very nice though. We went to the Red Lobster for lunch. We ordered, and he got his chowder, and he says, "All right, Carolyn, now let's pray." And so here we are, you know. And I thought, oh, this is just like being with Jim. Good grief.
Aw.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice. Yeah, because Jim always says, "All right, here we pray." And it was fun though. But I mean, talk about questioning everything. We disagree on almost everything, but that's okay too.
But you can be civil to each other
But
while
we're
you're
really
doing that.
civil. Yes, I love him
Yeah.
to bits. Yes.
Yeah.
And he finds his way to Billings, Montana in his travels. He had an errand to Boise and Idaho, and on the way back, he somehow decided to find old Carolyn, you know. And I thought, that's all right, you know, not every relative does that.
Right, oh,
really nice.
exactly. Exactly.
And so many times, you don't wanna be around the people that really don't agree with you, but other times, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And then, number 2 for this week, you know, is social justice is important. You know, as I struggled with the Bible's failure to address many social justice issues that are of concern to today's readers, I learned that I had stumbled on issues addressed by womenism, feminism, black theology, postmodernism, and many more theological perspectives. It is good to know that I wasn't the only one concerned about these issues. Job's care for his community is a reminder of the importance of paying attention to social justice issues. You know, and I would agree with that, you know, I mean, we gotta, you know, look out for the homeless, look out for, you know, everybody, you know, and just do what we can, you know, and, well, like God, you know, said, you know, love your neighbor, I mean, and your neighbor is not necessarily just your next door neighbor, it's, you know, all of you are my neighbors, you know, cause we're all in this room, you know, how can I help you, how can, you know, we just gotta look out for one another.
Lots of questions in there.
You know, last week, in our daily devotions, on Thursday, and I wish I would have read the devotion before I got to class, because it was based on Job 19. And that's exactly what we were studying last week. But, you know, it was reduced down to the same thing.
Which devotion was that? Is that the?
Christ in our home.
Yeah.
Oh,
I get that too.
Yeah.
I gotta pick that up again.
I get it in the large print.
I signed up for a Daily Grace, that was Women of the ELCA, and that's been good too. That's good. I really like that one. There's so many good ones, yeah.
Yeah, I've just never done anything different than the little booklet.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how it tells the writers where I always look at where the writers are from and, you know, what church or what part of the country.
Because one time Elizabeth,
Right.
her name Elizabeth, she, was a pastor at St. John's, and
Oh,
she
yeah.
filled in a few times.
Oh, yeah.
She
She
had-
was so good.
She had
From St. John's, what was
a
her?
few weeks in there one
Yeah.
time, or actually 2 different times I saw her.
Who was that?
Remember the
Was
lady
it
from St. John's, Elizabeth, who was,
Elizabeth, yeah.
would sub sometimes for Jen and Ben?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember when she was in there too. Yeah, every
Can't
once in
think
a
of
while,
her
there's
last
somebody
name.
that we know, you know. There's
So there's a lot of material in here
Yeah.
to try to understand.
Well, I think so,
You're helping us do
with
that.
him compacting it or just having, a theme, you can get overwhelmed by this.
Right,
whole thing.
yeah,
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
yes,
just
very
so much
easily.
going
Yeah.
on.
all the speeches kind of go on and on. And
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
And I wish I had the commentary that Pastor Ben gave me, but I think I left that in my office, you know, but, it was asking so many different questions, you know, and it's just like, you know, like I said, you know, first it was blasphemy, and then it was, you know, a couple different topics, and I'm, what in the heck, you know, and so I'd reread it, you know, just thinking about those things, and, oh yes, I see it here, I see it there, and how and why, but, yeah, and, you know, Job is such an interesting character,
Yeah, yes.
you know, and then like I said, cause next week will be the 4th week, and, but you'll see where, you know, Job starts to praise God for his afflictions, you know, and
Can you do that? I don't know.
I don't know
No,
if I could do that.
right, I don't think.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you bet.